some augmentation needed to be done in Kuno. Whether that has taken place or not, I don't know. But if that be the case, then pay base needs to be augmented. Thirdly, the expertise, which we don't have, we need to get from outside. And we had the expertise, we got them from South Africa, Namibia, etc., etc. Now, I do not know whether this expertise is still available to us, but if expertise is required, and if we don't have the expertise, for instance, and I know we don't have the expertise for mass capture and so on, not only of cheetal, but perhaps of nilgai and black buck. Then let us get that expertise from abroad. Now, what I'm saying is these are the integral parts of the successful program. Now, I don't know
whether it's happening or not.
Has happened on the ground, because I'm not a member of the team, and I would not go make any statements on the basis of newspaper reports alone. But these are, to my mind, integral part. Have we got the scientific know-how? For instance, we had developed certain scientific know-how. Do we still have it? Because we had the people coming and telling us from South Africa and Namibia.
Yes.
Now, those people, are they still here? Not here? I don't know.
What we are hearing is that some of our members will go to these countries and pick up some of those know-how possibly. Finally, are you hopeful and confident that a project like this can succeed, given the right things are done, as you're mentioning? Or is this project doomed to fail and lead to heartbreak and the understanding that something like this should never be attempted again?
No. Why should it? It's certainly not doomed to failure at all.
Okay.
If what I'm saying, these 2 or 3 issues which are there, and I'm sure these should be looked at, and I'm not sure just where the whole situation is, as I said, because I'm not a member. I'm not aware of what's happening on the ground. But if these kind of issues are taken care of, it would certainly not be a doomed failure. Please try and understand. It took 50 years for Project Tiger to have 3,000 tigers.
Right.
It took 70 years from nearly extinct rhinos, according to the Chief Minister of Assam in 1952, that rhinos are practically extinct in Assam. Today you have 4,000. It has taken 70 years. To protect the lion, the first effort to protect the lion started in 1879. Today, 150 years later, you have something like 700 lions all over Saurashtra. So this is a long haul. What has happened so far is a very small first step in the whole program.
Okay.
Now, the real program begins now. And I see no reason why it should not succeed. Provided, as I said, the various
right
points that
done.
I've said, which are the integral part of this program, are taken care of.
All right. I leave it at that. Dr. Bhanu Singh, thanks a lot for giving us your thoughts. Let's hope that the project can indeed succeed. With that, it's a wrap on Plain Speak. Thanks a lot for watching.
Watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. After sparking a political firestorm in March over his criticism of the Modi government from London, Rahul Gandhi has ignited another political war during his visit to the United States. Speaking at an event in California, Rahul Gandhi criticized the inauguration of the new parliament building and the installation of Sengol, calling them BJP-manufactured distractions from the real issues affecting the nation. Rahul Gandhi accused the BJP of spreading hatred in the country, adding that the government is targeting Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, Dalits, and increasing the sense of insecurity among minorities. Moreover, the former Congress president once again accused the centre of muzzling the opposition and misusing central agencies to crush dissent. The BJP was quick to hit back at the Congress leader, accusing him of insulting India on foreign soil once again. The Congress party, meanwhile, defended Rahul Gandhi's remarks, crediting him for painting the real picture of India under the 9 years of the Modi government. Rahul Gandhi once again finds himself in the middle of a political firestorm, launching another offensive from abroad. While the victory in Karnataka has given a much-needed boost to the Congress stand against the Modi government, will this attack backfire? Is this dissent or denigration from the former Congress president?
I think the Parliament House These are distractions. The real issues in India are unemployment, price rise, spread of anger and hatred. What is happening, for example, to the Muslim community in India today happened to the Dalit community in the 80s. We have to challenge it, we have to fight it. Agencies are used on people. So we also are finding that in some way it had become quite difficult to act politically.
इस प्रायोजित कार्यक्रम के अंतर्गत वो क्या प्राप्त करने गए हैं? क्या देश के ऊपर कीचड़ उछालना ही उनका एक काम रह गया है?
I don't think there's a worse statement than saying that I'm not proud to be an Indian, and that's what Narendra Modi said.
ये वही राहुल गांधी है जो मोदी विरोध करते करते आज नए पार्लियामेंट का भी विरोध करने लगे.
The SCs, the STs, the minorities, they all are feeling like second-grade citizens in the country.
अब एक तरफ जो है उस घमंडी घराने के घोचू घरौंदे की घबराहट और दूसरी तरफ भारत की धमक और मोदी जी की धाक.
Joining me now, Sanju Verma, National Spokesperson of the BJP. We have Mohammad Nalapad, Spokesperson of the Congress. Karuna Gopal is Political Analyst, and Brij Mohan Srivastav is the Spokesperson of the NCP. Let me begin with you, Sanju Verma. The BJP may not agree with Rahul Gandhi, but why call him anti-national? And where is it really an insult to India to what he has said abroad?
You know, Maria, with no offense to none, you've got to be kidding me if you say that what Rahul Gandhi has said abroad, which is so typical of him, is par for the course. Without much ado, let me just remind you, recently in March 2023, when he was in London, I will read out his exact quote. Bear with me for 10 seconds. The surprising thing is that the so-called defenders of democracy like US and Europe seem to be oblivious of the fact that a huge chunk of the democratic model has come undone in India. While the opposition is fighting that battle, US and Europe are not doing enough to restore democracy in India. Basically, Rahul Gandhi in London was pleading, was urging, was begging the US and Europe, please intervene in the internal matters of India. If that is not being anti-national, I don't know what is. Now, coming to what he said at San Francisco, he while responding to a question, said what is happening with Muslims today happened with Dalits in 1980s. I want to remind Rahul Gandhi and his darbaris and family retainers, if they are watching your show, that between 1980 and 1989, who was the Prime Minister of India? It was first Rahul Gandhi's grandmother, Mrs. Indira Gandhi, and then from 1984, after her assassination till 1989, it was Rahul Gandhi's father, Rajiv Gandhi, who was the Prime Minister. He made a reference to Uttar Pradesh. Now, who was the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh between 1980 and 1989? Barring a brief spell of President's rule in 1980, all through the 9 years between 1980 and 1989, you had a Congress Chief Minister in Uttar Pradesh, right from VP Singh, who was then in Congress, to Sripati Mishra, who was a congressman, to Veer Bahadur Singh, who was a congressman, to N.D. Tiwari, who was a congressman. My limited point, Maria, is this. When Rahul Gandhi gave that example of, Dalits being marginalized between 1980 and 1989, he should have done some basic homework because it was his Congress party.
Mohammad Nalapad, that example certainly showed that there was poor research that has gone into his, speech.
Maria, thank you for having me on this show.
Yes, go ahead, Sanju.
Yes. And Maria, this whole charade, मैं नफरत के बाजार में मोहब्बत की दुकान खोलने आ रहा हूं. Excuse me, आप मोहब्बत के बाजार में बार-बार नफरत के बीज बोने की कोशिश कर रहे हो because despite the Karnataka victory, it is not lost on anyone that the Congress today is a debilitated and electorally vanquished party.
Okay, Sanju, let me bring in the Congress now. Yes, go ahead, Mohammad Nalapad.
Hi, thank you, Maria, for having me on this show. First of all, I would like to I want to reiterate, nowhere has Rahul Gandhi pleaded and begged anybody to get involved in the
No, he did that in London. He said that in as many words that these countries are just watching.
Madam, I let you speak. I didn't talk when you spoke.
Go ahead,
Please listen to me.
Yes.
First of all, have some respect to the other people on the panel also. So he never pleaded or asked anybody. He is telling the truth. Today, I am a Muslim. I feel what Rahul Gandhi is saying. Today, all the country's people who are living in this country are not living as equal. What Baba Sahib Ambedkar gave us the constitutional right to be who you are, what you are, and all are one. We are not feeling that. When it comes to the parliament opening, I can vouch. How can you break the protocol of not inviting the president of the country? You have disrespected a Dalit. You have disrespected the president. The parliament is head of the parliament is not the prime minister. It is the president of India. And Rahul Gandhi has not said one word which is wrong. The BJP and the IT cell want to attack Rahul Gandhi and try to
talking about
the
attack on Dalits and saying that similarly it's happening here. And the time frame or the time period that he spoke about, it was the Congress party which was at the center.
Ma'am, see, even if it is good or bad, during any time, if there is something that has happened, we have tried to correct it. If what India was before 1947 and what India is today, it is because of the Congress, and we have corrected our course in every single time when we have gone ahead.
Okay.
It is not that everything was fine and rosy when the Britishers left India and when everything was not fine. Everything was not clear.
Yes, before I bring in,
over years it has been built.
Yes, before I bring in Sanju for a response, I want to understand from you, on what basis are you saying that minorities are being targeted? 2 minority-dominated states in Northeast have only recently voted for the BJP. So is this just a perception that is being created because it's convenient narrative?
No, it is not a perception or it is not a convenient narrative. See, today in Karnataka, if you see a huge landslide victory for Congress is because en masse Muslims voted for Congress. The one-sidedness, the feel of heat, what we had in Karnataka. I come from Karnataka and the State Youth Congress President of Karnataka, and I understand the pulse and I'm on the ground. I'm there every single day on the ground fighting the people's voice. And at the same time, I feel the oppression. I feel
but oppression how? I'm just saying that sometimes, is it just that the political parties feel that this is the most convenient bat to hit the BJP with? What basis are you talking about? There must be some data.
Let me give you simple logic on, let's not go too far. Let's go for the electoral only. When BJP is contested in Karnataka in 224 seats, has it given one single Muslim candidate to contest an election?
If a Muslim is not being fielded, Sanju Verma, this is essentially you treating them as second-class citizens. This is Congress Party's argument.
Very
Go
simple.
ahead. One moment. Yes, Sanju, quick response. Yes.
Yes, he will listen. Why is this man intervening now? I did not heckle him. You did not wish to be heckled, right? Now, please extend that courtesy to the other panelists.
Yes.
Thank you. I want to know, is the full name of this gentleman Mohammed Nalapad Harris? Maria, is it the same gentleman?
It's Mohammed Nalapad
Harris or Harris, whatever.
Yes.
Hello.
Nalapad, if you can hear me. He wants to know your complete name. Sanju Verma wants to know your complete name.
No, I am asking you as the anchor. Don't you know his full name?
I know about Mohammed Nalapad. I don't know whether there is another word in it or not.
Okay.
How does my name have to do anything with this?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, now you did not wish to be heckled. Now let me complete. You know, you seem to be the same gentleman, Mohammed Nalapad Harris. Mohammed Nalapad Harris, you were released on bail in February 2020 in that infamous Bentley car crash which injured 3 people, including a 6-year-old boy.
How does that matter?
In a case of rash and drunken driving, you injured a 6-year-old boy. Maria, I don't wish to do your debates. You don't moderate your debates.
Sanju, please come back.
Moderate your debates.
That's an unfair allegation on me. Please come back. You have made your point. Now he made his point. I've come back to you.
To speak.
No, that's an unfair charge against me, and you know it very well. So I'm saying that please go ahead, make your argument. He was also trying to counter like you were trying to counter. Please go ahead, make your point. Sanju Verma on the screen now. Yes.
Thank you. So indeed, if this gentleman Mohammed Nalapad is Mohammed Nalapad Harris, before giving a bhashan to the BJP on political probity and morality, I hope you will spend some time doing introspection about your rash and drunken driving case, wherein you were let out on bail in 2020, but a 6-year-old boy was debilitated, mutilated, and he's no longer the same. So please stop giving lectures to the BJP.
First of
Thank
all,
you.
stop saying lies.
Now let me finish.
Yes, Sanju Verma now.
Now let me finish.
Sanju Verma.
Yes,
Yes,
may I finish?
Go ahead, Sanju. Go ahead, Sanju. Make your point. Yes.
Yes. Now coming to the moot point. You know, the Congress has been saying, oh, the BJP does not respect Adivasis. Thanks to Prime Minister Narendra Modi, for the first time in post-independent India, we had a tribal Santhali woman called Draupadi Murmu from the remote Keonjhar district in Odisha becoming the president of India. The entire opposition fielded Yashwant Sinha, so they have no business sitting here and now saying, oh, you know, we love Draupadi Murmu. I want to ask the Congress, if you really respect the president, after she became the president, forget the past. Why is it that you have not even bothered to suspend Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary? Forget expelling him, because he called Draupadi Murmu Rashtra Patni. Your Ajay Kumar, who's a national spokesperson of the Congress, said Draupadi Murmu represents the evil philosophy of India. Have you taken action against Ajay Kumar? No. Have you taken action against Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary? No. Another Congress leader, Maria, called Udit Raj. He said,
let's talk about what Rahul Gandhi has said. Let's talk about what Rahul Gandhi has said.
Now what, Maria, 10 seconds more. Maria, I just want to ask Rahul Gandhi one thing. He mentioned about the Sikh community also being marginalized. Let your audience know that it was Rahul Gandhi's father, Rajiv Gandhi, who after the 1984 anti-Sikh pogrom said, जब एक बड़ा पेड़ गिरता है तो धरती थोड़ी हिल जाती है. It was the Modi government which formed the SIT in October 2014 and sent Sajjan Kumar behind prison bars.
Okay, let me ask
nothing.
An ally of the Congress party, if Rahul Gandhi's statements abroad are embarrassing their alliance partners as well, Brijmohan Srivastava, as a member of NCP?
Maria ji, just I was listening the blame game as well as the personal allegations. So, whatever Mr. Rahul Gandhi has spoken out of the country, I also listen him. Actually, why this is started in the political arena? Because when the Prime Minister of India elected from the BJP government in 2014, he spoken very straightway that we will finish the Congress from this country. When we say that we will finish someone, because there is a feeling of violence. Once you will say that I will finish someone, then that person is also having a right to react against me. Then when Prime Minister visited Japan, he also lashes out opposition from Japan. And he has spoken so many things against the opposition of India.
So you are essentially saying, Brijmohan Srivastava ji, that when Prime Minister Modi was the Chief Minister of Gujarat, he has criticized India in opposition on platforms outside. The question here is not the same. India of then is very different from India of today. Only today, a Morgan Stanley report is saying that India is a bright spot. At that time, India was in the fragile five.
How you can say that?
That's a report that has come in. I'm not saying it.
No. India was growing since last 30 years. Therefore, we are talking on this through Zoom to you, to the nation.
Yes.
Why you are saying this thing? That do you think that we are living in the dark area?
Well, that is what a bank report is suggesting. A number of such reports which have come in the past, and now they are painting a completely different picture. I'm not saying so. They are saying it. They have been critics of this government, and now they are lauding the efforts of this government. So I'm just I'm just saying, if the things have changed, isn't it responsibility? It is also the responsibility of the opposition leaders that when they travel abroad, they should also paint a picture of India, which is not which is correct.
Maria ji, we have to think one.
You know, you have foreign ministers of other countries coming and talking about the UPI payment in India and saying that they should go ahead and implement it. That happened in the case of Japan and other countries. We have not heard any story of that nature from any of you.
I agree, Maria ji. Rahul Gandhi is visiting.
Yes, Karuna ji, I'm coming to you. Yes, go ahead, Karuna Gopal.
Not as a member of Bharatiya Janata Party. He's a leader of opposition.
Yes,
there.
so the leader of opposition also.
When he's a leader of opposition there, he will speak against the government issues.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not saying that don't speak against the government, Mr. Srivastava. I'm not saying don't speak against the government. As a leader in opposition, you have all right to criticize the government and its policies. Do so. But the platform is what is being questioned again and again. Karuna Gopal, come in on this. You know, on one hand, you know, the BJP says that Rahul Gandhi is inconsequential because he has lost election after election. He is not the Congress president. He is not a member of parliament. Then why is he so central to BJP's attack? In the sense that the entire focus is against Rahul Gandhi, not as much as even the Congress president at present. Mr. Kharge.
Well, Maria, I think Rahul Gandhi achieved this much that he is grabbing eyeballs today, that we are having this kind of serious discussion. But this discussion is actually not warranted for the simple reason that I doubt if Rahul Gandhi has the stature or the status to even malign India or be reckoned as a tall leader whose words have to be taken into cognizance by the international audiences, let's say today. Look at the current context. I mean, when the entire country is celebrating 9 years of Modi's regime, and the international community has been praising him, and no less than the Prime Minister of Australia calls him the boss, the Bruce Springsteen. And here you have this gentleman walking wounded. He is walking wounded, and he uses such lowly words like specimen for the Prime Minister, and he uses words like lying down for respectful prostration, which in other words demonstrates his helplessness, maybe because he's no more the member of parliament. It demonstrates his envy and jealousy, perhaps, to a certain audience that is discerning, that they know that this government is doing infinitely better than the government of his family, number one. Then he perhaps is also in some way trying to hide his ire, let's say his anger, that he's not been able to make an impact in any which way. So I think he's inconsequential.
The question is also that any kind of personal attack against the Prime Minister has always backfired.
Absolutely.
And why is Rahul Gandhi going overboard, Mr. Nalapad?
See, first of all, whatever statement Madam is made as a political analyst or a BJP agent, I have a doubt.
No, she is an analyst. If you do not agree with her, that doesn't make her a BJP agent, as you're saying.
See,
yes, please go ahead, Mohammed Nalapad. I can also say that, you know, you cannot box my panelists as per your liking. I know she is an analyst, so you have to name her as an analyst. Her name is Karuna. Yeah, that is where you stop.
I will not go on that line.
Yes,
but
please,
I would like to, before I start telling anything, to Sanju ji, I would like to ask. She quoted some case of mine, a car accident. As a citizen of India, I have the right to drive and go for maybe an accident happens. But at the same time,
let's put the focus back on this, please. Yes,
the Home Minister of this country was study par. Amit Shah of this country,
let's talk about
Home Minister of this country, Amit Shah was study par.
Let's talk about
Rahul Gandhi is out on bail.
So please
in National Herald scam. Sonia Gandhi is out on bail. In National Herald scam. Your P. Chidambaram is out on bail. In INX media scam.
Listen, madam.
Your Robert Vadra is out on bail. In the Bikaner land grab scam. Amit Shah has been given a clean chit by the court. But you have not been given a clean chit by the court. You are still facing trial for debilitating and mutilating
your ability to shout is more than me, doesn't mean you're making sense.
It is a case of drunken and rash driving. People like you should not be on national television speaking about integrity or morality because it's the height of hypocrisy.
Do you have any right more than me?
You do not have any right to be on this debate talking about morality. Because
you have the equal right as me.
Okay, Mohammed Nalapad and Sanju Verma. Sanju and Nalapad. Mr. Nalapad. Okay, one moment. I'm going to start wrapping the debate, and I'm going to begin with you, Mohammad Nalapad. Any attack against the Prime Minister has backfired. Why make it about personal attacks?
See, madam, whatever Rahul Gandhi has spoken in his time out, he has not lied a single word. We all stand by what he has said. Today they are talking about 9 years of Modi. Let's talk about unemployment. What is the rate of unemployment today? What was the rate during the Congress regime? What is the price hike? Today, what is the price of petrol?
Since you raised about questions, two questions about price hike. Sanju, since you are an economist as well, please respond to those two questions specifically. Jobs and price rise.
May I please?
Yes,
thank you.
How many
Maria,
jobs
very quickly.
BJP has given in last 9 years?
Okay, one moment, Mr. Srivastava, one moment. Let us speak. Yes.
Mr. Srivastava, please. Thank you. Maria, the latest wholesale inflation number for the month of April is actually a negative 0.92%. Food inflation is 0.17%. Potato inflation is negative 18.41%. Onion inflation is a negative 18.6%. And the retail inflation number at 4.7% is also at a 15-month low. And I'm so happy on your show to announce that we have done a GDP growth of 7.2% in FY22-23. For the second time running, India is the fastest growing economy in the world. And the GDP growth of last year has also been revised upwards from 8.7 to 9.1%.
Where is the 2 crore jobs?
When large parts of the world are facing recession, the US is not growing at more than 1%. China is growing at barely 2.5 or 3%. The world
Where is the 2 crore jobs?
1.6%. India continues to grow at 7% plus, which is a huge thumbs up for Modinomics. Rahul Gandhi can keep crying on foreign shores. He's making a complete national and international embarrassment of himself.
Okay. Mr. Nalapad, will you respond to that?
Why
I want to ask, where is the 2 crore jobs? Where is the 2 crore jobs?
What are you saying, Mr.
Where
Srivastava?
is the 2 crore job that Narendra Modi ji promised? 18 crore jobs. 18 crore jobs.
Do you know how many loans have been given under Mudra Yojana? More
See,
than
giving loans doesn't create jobs. People of the country, the youth of this country need jobs.
Been self-employed thanks to Mudra Yojana. Please go and educate yourself.
They need jobs.
Please go and educate yourself. 23 lakh crore
2 crore jobs. 2 crore jobs per year. 18 crore jobs. Narendra Modi ji, that is 18 crore jobs.
Generating scheme.
Where is 18 crore
Please
jobs?
read about Mudra Yojana.
Where is 18 crore jobs?
How many unicorns we have in India?
Narendra Modi ji didn't tell I will give
unicorns today.
Narendra Modi ji didn't tell I will give jobs. He said I will give jobs,
asked
not
a
give loans.
question on unemployment. There are certain facts being put forth by Sanju Verma. You have to listen to her.
We have more than 78,000 startups today. Under the Congress, we did not even have 3,000 startups. So please don't give me a lecture on the economy. We have more than 78,000 startups today.
Let's talk about...
We had less than 3,000 startups under the Congress.
Okay,
The inflation under Congress was 14.72% in December 2013. Retail inflation. Today, retail inflation is
Narendra Modi ji, Honorable Prime Minister, promised 2 crore jobs.
You know, the question is, Rahul Gandhi, every time he travels, he paints a picture that opposition has been silenced, opposition doesn't get a voice. That's also one of the charge that he levels again and again. But we are seeing opposition continuing with its dissent. 11 chief ministers of opposition-ruled states did not attend Niti Aayog. The entire opposition, most of them, 18 political parties, they had a choice, they had an option. They did not attend the inauguration of the new parliament building. So that is an exercise of freedom of choice. And if anything, they have, exercised their right to do whatever they want.
Maria ji, it's correct that we are having all right to speak. But when we say something, we speak against the government. And what is the result of it? ED is following us, CBI is following us, Income Tax Department is following us, and they are digging without the reasons. They are digging the issues against us. This is the issue. When we are living in a democracy, if the Prime Minister is saying something against the opposition, why the opposition is having not? Why opposition is also having right to discuss on the merits? Whatever Rahul Gandhi
discuss on the merits, Karuna Gopal. So let's discuss all the issues on the merits.
Sorry?
Karuna. Yes.
Sorry?
You have Mr. Brijmohan Srivastav who is saying that discuss the issues on merits. So discuss all that he has said on the merits rather than making it about he speaking on which platform, speaking outside India, or even saying that he is a leader in the opposition space.
Look, Maria, you yourself have just stated the Morgan Stanley report. Okay, now what else can be more blatant than the kind of refuting they are doing? I mean, here you have reports. In fact, I just got it printed now. Everybody across the world are praising India for its development, etc. Now, when the congressperson says 2 crore jobs, I'm really surprised that they don't understand the macroeconomic scenario. Don't they understand the economic headwinds? Don't they understand that we have Ukraine-Russia war? I mean, don't they know that tomorrow there could be a lot of things that could actually go wrong with China, but India is trying to be extremely resilient. Do they know that we are today trying to lessen our dependence on China in the economic sphere? We are looking at the rare earths that they have. We are trying to be extremely resilient. Look at our infrastructure development. Look at the pace of development. Look at the scale of development. We have done an enormous amount of work, but they are hanging on to something. Notwithstanding the global headwinds, India has surged ahead, and you have an international audience applauding this particular growth. I remember, when India, we used to talk about the Asian tiger. India never featured there. They used to talk about Asian tigers like maybe, Singapore, Hong Kong, etc. Today, listen to this.
I want to ask a question, Madam Gopal. Then why देश में दूध की नदियां बह रही हैं, तो why the government is providing ration to the 80 crore families in India?
Yes, because yes, go ahead. I think more than Karuna, that should be answered by Sanju.
I will answer that. Maria, after we had 2 black swan events, one was of course the global pandemic Corona, and then you had the US-Ukraine conflict. I call them the black swan events. The reason for giving 81 crore people all through the pandemic and, this Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana program will last till December 2023. We decided to give 81 crore people free ration every month, not because all of them are necessarily poor or all of them are necessarily marginalized. But when a black swan event and a global pandemic in over 102 years hits you, your purchasing power gets eroded because a lot of people were sitting and working from home, had to face pay cuts of anywhere between 20 to 50%. At that time, for the Modi government to come in, step in and give a gesture saying that fine, you are not necessarily marginalized, but we want to handhold you through a trying phase. We want to handhold you through a very difficult phase. I don't see why the opposition is so rattled, because the Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana has been cited by global institutions like Stanford University and Harvard, saying this is one of the best global outreach programs to mitigate poverty. And IMF says, thanks to Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, extreme poverty in India fell to barely 0.68%.
Okay.
0.68% is the extreme poverty level in India, lowest in the world.
Okay.
Despite a debilitating pandemic.
Okay. Okay. I've really come to the end of this discussion. Thank you so much to all the panelists who joined me. We are slipping into a short break. Up next, a huge thumbs up to the India growth story. A Morgan Stanley report cites transformational change in the last 10 years. We decode India's economic fundamentals after a quick break. So stay with us.
On a 10-day visit to United States, during a speech in San Francisco, he slammed the Modi government over issues of minorities. Rahul claimed that minorities feel unsafe in India. He said, and I quote, "It is felt most strongly by Muslim community because it's done most directly to them, but it's done to other minority communities as well. I can guarantee you that the Sikhs, Dalits and Christian and tribal community are feeling the same thing." So Rahul Gandhi is in United States and he has slammed the Modi government over issues of minorities. He has claimed that minorities feel unsafe in India, and he has said that this is felt most strongly by the Muslim community, but it's also felt by other minority communities. Let's listen in to what Rahul Gandhi said.
This happens periodically in India. What is happening, for example, to the Muslim community in India today happened to the Dalit community in the 80s. If you went to UP in the 80s, the Dalit community, what is happening with the Muslims was happening with the Dalits there. So periodically this type of stuff happens, and we have to challenge it, we have to fight it, and we have to fight it with affection.
Our senior editor Pallavi Ghosh is joining us. Pallavi, so Rahul Gandhi has yet again targeted the central government, saying that the minorities are under attack in India and they are being treated the same way as Dalits were being treated in Uttar Pradesh in the 80s.
And it's become a pattern whenever Rahul Gandhi goes abroad, and the whole idea of these interactions is essentially to make the point that all is not well in our country. Whether he went to UK earlier, whether he went to in the next couple of meetings, and there's some big bag ones lined up in Washington, New York, San Francisco, he's going to be making the same point, and he's going to keep the focus on the Bharat Jodo Yatra. In fact, he began his speech today by mentioning the fact that despite all kind of pressures coming in from the agencies and an attempt being made by the BJP plus the RSS to silence the people, he was undaunted. And of course, the whole issue about it being a selective democracy. There's an attempt, and he used these words, and he's likely to use these words also, that how the minority community, a specific community, are always targeted, and there's no place for them in our country because this government does not care for them. All the government cares for is the particular religion, which is the Hindus, and therefore they're very selective in the kind of patronage or the kind of support that they give. This, of course, is expected and likely to blow up into yet another controversy, as usually Rahul Gandhi's foreign trips are, where the BJP is going to completely reject it. But I think this is the line which has been taken now by the Congress party for 2024 and also the upcoming state elections, that a vote for the BJP means a vote for a divisive country.
Right, Pallavi, please stay with us. We'll once again listen in to what Rahul Gandhi said about the minority communities in India.
Nafrat ke bazaar mein mohabbat ki dukaan. That is the best way I can say it, which is that it is felt most strongly by the Muslim community, okay, because it is done most directly to them. But in fact, it is being done to all minorities. I can guarantee you that the same way you are feeling attacked, I can guarantee you my Sikh brothers are feeling the same thing. This happens periodically in India. What is happening, for example, to the Muslim community in India today happened to the Dalit community in the 80s. If you went to UP in the 80s, the Dalit community, what is happening with the Muslims was happening with the Dalits there. So periodically this type of stuff happens, and we have to challenge it, we have to fight it, and we have to fight it with affection.
Coming back to you, Pallavi, so we remember that Rahul Gandhi faced massive backlash for the comments he made in the UK on Indian democracy. And as per reports, his aide Praveen Chakravarti had claimed that Indian democracy is not on the agenda of his visit to US this time. But despite that, we are seeing such statements coming in from the United States made by Rahul Gandhi.
Yeah, but I think Sam Pitroda, the one who heads the IOC, had made it very clear, and this is the point that they have been raising. And look, that the whole purpose of Rahul Gandhi's overseas trips is essentially to bring an awareness among his supporters abroad, and to make the point that, things are not going right as far as our country is concerned. Over the next few days, he's going to have visits with NRI, celebrities. There are going to be politicians as well, their think tank, a large number of young students and professionals, so on and so forth. And the core of his meeting is essentially going to be this, that while the Congress party believes in a politics of taking everyone along, but as far as the BJP plus the RSS or the central government in India is concerned, it is essentially got to do with being very selective, that there is a lack of democracy. And I'm sure at some point of time he's likely to raise the issue of parliament. He did briefly touch upon it today about the new parliament building. In fact, in his short speech today, he took a lot of pot shots at the Prime Minister, saying that, he stopped listening to people. And when you stop listening to people, it essentially shows that you stop learning, feeling the pulse of the people, and that you're mediocre in nature.
Also, Pallavi, Rahul Gandhi has also said that it is important to have a caste census. It is a much needed thing in India right now, and he has claimed that if Congress comes to power, this is the first thing that they'll be.
Welcome back. Morgan Stanley, in its latest report, has hailed the economic blueprint of the Modi government and has said that in a short span of 10 years, India has boosted its position in the world order through positive reforms of its macro and market outlook. The report, titled India Equity Strategy and Economics, How India Has Transformed in Less Than a Decade, has predicted that India will emerge as a key driver for Asia and shoulder a fifth of global growth in the next decade. Let me give you an overview of this report. This report states that manufacturing as a percentage of GDP will rise by 5%, that is, by the year 2031. Another highlight has been that there have been broad-based gains across goods and services exports. So that is an important area of growth. The export market share will double to 4.5% by 2031 is what this report is predicting. Per capita income will rise to about $5,200 by financial year, in fact, 2032. There is now a lower volatility in inflation and shallower interest rate cycles as well. Structural transformation has boosted saving investments is what this report is suggesting. And it has gone on to say that share of profits in GDP has doubled from an all-time low in 2020. And the supply side reforms have led to a major rise in investments. There's reliance on global capital market flows has reduced, and there is now a low correlation with oil prices and US recession via macro stability. We are now being joined by our newsmaker, Rhythm Desai, who's the MD of Morgan Stanley. Mr. Desai, I really appreciate your time. Your report says that Morgan Stanley ran into significant skepticism about India, particularly with overseas investors who say that India has not delivered its potential despite it being the second fastest growing economy. Why, according to you and your research, what did India do right in the last 9 years, which it did not do earlier?
Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. So lots of things have happened, actually. I think, first of all, and this is a bit technical, India has focused on macro stability. So if I were to use purely from an economic perspective, I would characterize the Prime Minister as an inflation hawk, which essentially means that he doesn't want inflation. And this is very critical for prosperity of the economy. So in order to achieve that outcome, he actually changed the mandate for the central bank. So our Reserve Bank of India is now solely focused on delivering lower inflation outcomes. And the best result of this was seen during the pandemic. While the world at large was facing runaway inflation, countries like US, which normally have sub 2% inflation, experienced 9% inflation. India's inflation rise was very modest. So in part, this was to do with how the RBI's policy was framed, and in part it had to do with how the government actually protected poor people during the pandemic. So instead of doling out cash, which is what a lot of Western hemisphere economies did, India was actually giving food, and that's not inflationary. So that's the first big change. And the seeds of this change was sown in 2013, when the then Federal Reserve Governor Ben Bernanke just set taper, and India's currency was down 20%. And the RBI was in a spot and had to raise interest rates by 200 basis points overnight. So India is no longer in that situation. We call this macro stability. So its macro is far more stable. The second thing that has happened, I think, is how India does social transfers. And I think this is a story that has been missed by headline media in India. And the seeds of this were sown when the Prime Minister decided that we have to accelerate Aadhaar and identify each and every Indian digitally. And India Stack and Aadhaar allows the government to actually make social transfers very efficiently without leakages.
Okay.
Of course, this was supplemented by enormous effort by the government to open bank accounts for the hitherto unbanked. And now we're able to do these transfers without the age-old leakages, middlemen, corruption. So the intended beneficiaries are getting what they deserve to get. Not only that, the government has actually now also changed some of these things into delivering stuff in kind rather than just cash, because you can't control how people spend cash.
Okay.
Whereas you can send QR codes which pay the fees of your girl child, and that actually achieves desired outcomes. So this is the second big change that I would highlight. Massive improvement in social transfers, which is, I think, directly improving the lives of poor people in India.
Okay.
The third is the change with respect to macro policy on how the government should interact with corporations. See, ultimately, corporate entities or businesses, I should say, are the ones who invest. When they invest, they create jobs. When they create jobs, you get wages, you get all-round prosperity. It's a virtuous cycle. You can't achieve this by distributing free money and wages to people. It doesn't work that way. That creates inflation. This government is very focused on improving the business viability case for India. And corporate India is back. In fact, multinational companies are back. We run proprietary indicators which suggest that multinational companies' sentiment on India is at all-time highs, and they're investing. And as this investment cycle rolls out, you will see greater prosperity. So I can go on and on, but I think these are the three mega headline changes, which are at the helm of the transformation that the Indian economy is experiencing, and why we are everybody's focus point today. Boards around the world are discussing India, discussing what they should be doing in India, how they should invest, they should access the Indian market, because this is the place where you want to be in the next 10, 20 years.
Yes, and that's quite an explanation. So, Rhythm, really appreciate that. And among the risks that the report has listed, two major factors, including fragmented verdict in 2024 Lok Sabha polls. Is the report then saying that a strong government with majority is imperative for India's growth story currently?
So see, the way I would characterize this is that when you get a coalition government that is run by a minority party, there's a lot of focus on managing the politics, and the economy takes a backseat. When you get a majority government, and this is not always the case, but a majority government has a better chance to focus on the things that the country needs rather than just working on making the government survive. So that's the importance of delivering a majority verdict. We've seen in the past, India has delivered a few minority governments, and they have not been good economic outcomes in those years. So I think this is, being a democracy, we have to deal with this every 5 years. There's no guarantee of how our voters will show up on the polling booths and vote, but it's a risk, therefore, we have to keep in mind.
Okay, and Morgan Stanley had placed India in fragile 5 a decade back, and now it is the bright spot as it is being seen. Did this report factor in the economic situation in the West, especially the US, and the backdrop of an ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine?
So there's going to be a constant challenge for India. If I make a comparison with China, when China was growing rapidly in the previous 3 decades, it had the benefit of very strong global growth as a tailwind. India may not have that benefit. In large part, this is because the world is aging and because the world is burdened with a lot of debt. So global growth, I suspect, will be a lot slower than it was when China was emerging out of its status as a poor economy into a developing or developed economy. India will have to do a lot more hard work and rely a lot more on its domestic economy. As the Prime Minister calls Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think the context there is that we have to deliver our prosperity using our own economy rather than just depending on what the world will give us. The world will do a little bit here and there, but it will not be as rosy as it was for China. So that is clearly a risk. You asked about the war. I don't think the war really brings much risk to India. We've managed the crude oil situation quite well. And the intensity of oil to GDP in India is anyway declining, and it will continue to decline. So we will be less reliant on imported oil 10 years from now than we are today, or we were, say, 10 years ago. So that's a lesser risk. But generally speaking, geopolitics is always a concern. And we never know when the next big war happens and what impact it has on the world economy. So as I said, the world will be less cooperative and we'll have to do our own heavy lifting. But I think we're there. And we have a very strong domestic economy, and it's an economy that a lot of multinational companies want access to. So it's good news for India.
Yes, so that self-reliance or Atmanirbharta is not just a slogan. It is about ensuring that we are able to sail through the crisis which is there all over the world. My last question to you, your report certainly cautions that a sharp rise in commodity prices due to supply outages and shortages in skilled labor supply could alter the outlook. How important are these issues individually, and what should India do to negate this risk?
So we can't do much with commodity prices except increase our domestic production. So we're doing that. Some of the biggest import items on our list are urea, sunflower seeds, palm oil, and a lot of domestication of that capacity will take place over the next 3, 4, 5 years. We will reduce our dependence relative to GDP in oil. So some of these, volatile commodities will have a lower share in our import bill going forward. With respect to labor, I think it's something we need to keep an eye on because skilling of labor, I think, will be largely done in the private sector. But there will be some gaps. There will be gaps in demand and supply. There will be periods when there is very strong demand for skilled labor and we may not be able to supply it. Overall, India, of course, has a very good situation with labor supply. We have amongst the best demographics in the world, so we don't have a problem in terms of quantity. But the quality of labor supply will, I think, be a challenge and will have to be managed. But I think the private sector will do bulk of the heavy lifting there rather than the government.
All right, Rhythm Desai, pleasure speaking to you, MD of Morgan Stanley, giving us details of the report that has been published. Thank you so much. Joining me now is former Executive Director of the IMF, Professor Surjit Bhalla. Professor Bhalla, I appreciate your time. India of today is certainly different from India, which was in 2013. I'm going to quote a part of this report, which says that in a short span of 10 years, India has gained positions in the world order with significant positive consequences for the macro and market outlook. This is what the Morgan Stanley report is saying. Why is this report significant, given that India remains a growth story in the world where recession is lurking?
Absolutely. Look, I've gone through the report and, there isn't much that I disagree with. Indeed, there isn't anything I disagree with. This has been, a long journey for India, and several of us have been documenting the fact that this is a structural change. And a lot of people, or some people, look at it and quarter by quarter numbers, etc., and try and glean something out of it. But this is a mega structural change that has been going on and has accelerated in the last 10 years. Now, what is this structural change? If you look at, and the Morgan Stanley report goes to great lengths to document with a lot of data. Let me take a little time out. What we find is that individuals, experts are often taken to pontificating about the Indian economy without recourse to data. So it's like, I think so, therefore it is so.
Yes.
The Morgan Stanley report is a very significant departure from this tendency to paint the picture as per your ideological or political beliefs. This is a solid, documented report with facts, figures, and no opinions. And the bottom line that comes out is that this is a big structural change. People at the IMF, etc., have also been noting it. The world has been noting it, that we are now the big engine of growth in the world. As you rightly pointed out when you said earlier that in a world facing recession. Incidentally, I don't think the world will have a recession. I have consistently been of the view that the world will avoid, the US will avoid. So technically, Europe or Germany has entered into a recession. But I do think the fact that we are at that stage, increasing investments, and the world also now recovering from the shocks, I think the next few years are going to be quite dynamite for India and maybe for some parts of the world as well.
Professor Bhalla, one question that is repeatedly asked is about job creation. What measures do you suggest to address that concern?
Okay, I don't know. I mean, this is one of the fault lines in the Indian public debate that, when in doubt, bring up inflation. And if you're still in doubt, bring up there are not enough jobs. As it happens, I've done some work on it, which is published for the public to see, that we have created jobs upwards of 10 million a year for the last 5 years. So unemployment rate is down to about 6.5%. I'm not citing private data sources, which may show and which do show a much higher unemployment rate. So I honestly do not, you can say that, listen, everybody should be employed. Yes, I would advocate that. But, an unemployment rate of about 6% for a growing economy like ours, and with increased supply of educated individuals coming into the labor force, is nothing to sneeze at. And again, compare, one of the things I keep emphasizing is that, let us not look on the Indian economy as an island. We are not an island. No country is an island today. So therefore, you are affected much more by global forces than you ever were. So let's recognize that. And therefore, if you're talking about jobs, let's look at which country has provided this percentage increase in jobs. We provided much more jobs over the last few years, including post-COVID, obviously post-COVID, than even the US. So, and US, we all say, is a big success in terms of provision of jobs. And when it comes to India, I don't know what data people look at, but really, there is no evidence to suggest that we have an employment problem anymore in India.
Okay, my last question is, from being the fragile five in 2013 to becoming the fastest growing economy in 2022-23, we certainly have traveled a long way. Do you think India really has to overcome the risk of being a Brazil? Because that is often said that our growth story should not really plateau from here on.
Well, if we plateau at 7.5%, 8%, that's not called plateauing. I would certainly not in my book. That's living up to and growing at our potential, perhaps even higher. But, in a world where world economic growth has slowed down, that for us to be growing at 7.5%, 8% is very, very commendable and something to be respected and something to be admired. I do think we can, remember what we just talked in the beginning about the infrastructure investment.
Yes.
One of the first lessons in economics is that infrastructure investment affects growth with a lag. So we are yet to see the performance when the lag comes in. So, I think 7.5%, 8% is certainly doing brilliantly. And as I said, I have made suggestions about how we can accelerate this growth process. And one of them being through a reduction in direct taxes. You know, one of the things pointed out in this Morgan Stanley report, which I fully agree with, that just look, I remember perhaps even in discussions with you and other TV channels, when the government cut the corporate tax rate in 2019. And everybody was saying, oh, you know, our tax revenues would go down and this and that and whatever. Look at what has happened. It's transformed. And I think the only big area for tax reform, other than sort of GST, lowering taxes in GST, are direct taxes. India needs a significant revision and reform of direct taxes. And then, you know, we'll be asking as to whether 8% is enough. I certainly think we can grow on a sustained basis at something close to 8.5% if we do the reforms that some of the people are recommending.
Professor Sujit Bhalla, always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you so much for decoding the Morgan Stanley report. That's all from me. We are putting out those interviews on news18.com. I'll be seeing you tomorrow. Thanks so much for watching.
Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. On a day when the Morgan Stanley report points at a bright, shining, glowing future for Bharat, Rahul Gandhi, on foreign shores, highlights the pains and the ills of Bharat, saying things are not going right. On a day when the Morgan Stanley report points at some of the risks that could stop this entire growth story of Bharat, Rahul Gandhi turns around and says, where is the growth story? On a day when Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in